Welcome. I'm Crystal Cotto Sullivan, wisdomologist and your host of Journey to Practical Wisdom. In this episode of Wisdomology Book Club, we will be discussing Diana Beresford-Kroeger's book, Our Green Heart, The Soul and Science of Forests. Some of you may be familiar with her work. She has written a book called Speaking for Trees. It too is an amazing read. Our Green Heart is a book of short essays, 30 to be specific, each leaving us with much to ponder. So let me welcome the other members of my book club. And we will begin by asking Jillian. Hi, ladies.
Hi, nice to be here.
And you're still muted. There you are. Hello.
Hi.
So today, Our Green Heart, I think I'm now, hopefully there's no glare on this. People can see it.
Good.
And of course, we'll put it in the intro to the podcast so people who aren't watching on YouTube will see it. So Jillian, you're the one that actually chose this particular book. Could you just talk a little bit about why you chose it?
Well, I've read Diana's first book, Speak for the Trees. And what attracted me to it was, well, first of all, it turned out it's more of a memoir about how she became to be interested in trees. But what was really fascinating to me was the fact that she was raised in Ireland, where her relatives were Celts, and they lived close to nature, and they taught her all about the trees and about nature. And I was born in England myself, and I've always felt that my ancestors were Druids, so it feels like a part of me. And I've always had this real connection to trees, even before this. So I was naturally interested, for both those reasons. And then when we saw this new book come out, Our Green Heart, I knew right away that I wanted to learn more. Although, as you know, it turned out that this book was a bit challenging because there's a lot of scientific talk in it, but we all felt that we learned enough in it that we wanted to share it with everyone.
Great. Now you were at a book fair, weren't you, when you found this?
Yes, I was at the Eden Mills Book Fair in September with my girlfriend Marcy, and before I went to check to see what authors were going to be there, what books were going to be there, and I knew right away that I wanted the book. And actually, she was speaking there, and unfortunately, I didn't have a chance to hear her because there's so many speakers going on at the same time, so I couldn't do everything. But she seems like a fascinating person, and she's a very intelligent person, with a photographic memory, from what I understand.
Mhm.
And really, what's really wonderful about it, I think Joanne mentioned it the other day, that she feels there is hope for our planet. And, that's a wonderful thing because with the climate change that's happening, um, we're all afraid and we're wondering what can we do to make a difference. And, we're afraid that we can't, but I think you're going to find out later in the show that yes, we can make a difference. And I'll be explaining that a little bit in a while.
Great. How about you, Joanne? What was your reaction to the book?
Well, I agree with Jillian. I found it a bit of a tough read because the writing style, I do prefer story format, and this felt more like a science lesson. However, I did persevere, and it was one of those books that, as far as reading enjoyment, it wasn't as enjoyable, but I must say that I found myself thinking about it and talking about it with my family here quite a bit. And I thought that's interesting, isn't it? That
Hmm.
it did provoke thought. And I think, isn't that part of the reason for self-educating, if you will?
Well, it's the reason we have this book club, isn't it? Because we want to challenge our thinking and we want
Yeah.
to. stories are great, and often in the books that we're reading there are stories as well. But the books are often challenging us to really take action and do something about what's happening in the world. And I agree with both of you. In fact, I think I was the first one to say it when we first talked about the book. It was a hard read because of the science in it. And I love science. So, I don't mind reading scientific books, but this was really heavy duty science. Now, the good thing about the book that I really liked is that there were 30 essays. So you could read the essay and then think about it. And as you say, Joanne, talk about it with your family or whoever happened to be around. So I really did like that part of it. So what we thought we would do is, because there are 30 essays, we are not going to talk about 30 essays. We just thought we would talk, maybe each of us would talk about a couple of the essays that really struck us, and what those essays mean to us. So if one of you would like to start, that would be great.
Well, I think it would be really timely to talk about, what's happening in California now and why, with all the fires that have been going on. And she actually addresses this in this book. Apparently, because over time, people have been planting trees that don't belong in a particular environment. It's been detrimental to us.
That's
Like, for example, in California, the settlers planted eucalyptus trees. And because of this, like, eucalyptus trees have oil in them. So when the debris falls on the ground and they're getting these really high temperatures, and the soil acts as a reflector, and it combusts once the temperature gets to 48 degrees centigrade. And now, if they'd left the original trees there, like she mentioned, a couple of other trees, the sequoia tree and the redwoods and the Monterey pine, they have sort of evolved and become resistant to fire. And, and they protected us. And so now, California's stuck with this huge issue and this constant fear of having fires. So this is a really important lesson and something that we can change. And I think it's important to be knowledgeable because I think our ignorance in the past has caused these calamities to happen in the world, and particularly in California at this point.
Well, and it's interesting because the fires in San Francisco in 1994, that was when I first became aware of the eucalyptus trees. And so I've actually been to California numerous times, and there are plenty of eucalyptus trees. It's so interesting that they are around. And even back then, so it's interesting, that is 30 years ago. And they're still planting eucalyptus trees. Like we're pretty slow to learn, aren't we? Yeah, for sure. But that is interesting about the other thing about planting the wrong trees in the wrong place. She talks about reforestation and that pine trees are just the simplest, easiest to grow, but not necessarily the best trees to put into places. And I think that's also important. And just to take it a step further, she does talk about in her book to research what are the native trees to our area and to plant those trees. And we'll talk more about planting the trees later. Yeah, that's a really good point. The wrong trees in the wrong places, for sure. And that was one of her chapters, wrong tree in the wrong place. Yeah. How about you, Joanne? What
one of the essays that really fascinated me was the part about the forest schools for children. And I guess I took note of that because I feel that our children today are under a lot of stress to learn this and learn that in very competitive type of environment. And these forest schools, some of the points were that the children are immersed in nature and they're getting all kinds of benefits totally unconsciously from this. But two of the things that they're taught is this deep respect for nature. And what we love, we tend to take care of.
Mhm.
And perhaps that's where the hope lies for the future, to be able to remedy some of the damage that's been done. And the other thing I noticed was during the forest school, how the children interacted with each other was quite different. They seemed to function with a spirit of cooperation and helping one another, and this sort of natural excitement for something that was almost, well, I'm going to use the word awesome, but at the same time kind of sacred. And
Mm.
kids don't get a lot of that these days. And I thought that was really a beautiful one. And of course, it tied in nicely to the essay on forest bathing. And I've never officially gone to a forest bathing class or anything like that, but I do love walking, and the more trees, the better. And I got another appreciation of how to engage all my senses during a walk, to be able to absorb it more so. And some of the ideas about the forest bathing, I don't know if it was in that particular essay, but there's certain trees that actually give off this, and the less clothing you're wearing and it falls on your skin, if it's left there for 48 hours, it has incredible health benefits to the immune system, and in some instances, beneficial to people, especially men with certain types of cancer. And I thought, wow, like we've made things pretty complicated, and
That's right.
here's something that's so natural.
Well, it's interesting. You talk about the aerosol. Sorry, Jillian, go ahead.
No, I was just going to add to that, to what Joanne was saying, that the benefits of bathing. It's also been proven that people with depression and anxiety will get benefits from being with the trees. And that doesn't mean actually going out to a forest. It can go to the local park or something. And I know for myself, when I'm, dealing with anything stressful, I will go and hug a tree. And my goodness, I feel better. I feel calmer. It's like the tree knows that I was saying the other day that sometimes it feels like the trees are our grandparents and they're watching over us and they're giving us all these things we need. And yet, so often we're abusing their presence in our world.
Yeah. And what you both said about the forest bathing and about the aerosol coming from the trees, that's why the kids do so well at forest school, because they're getting all of those benefits from the trees. They are just soaking that up. And it makes me think of the one chapter that I really liked. I think it was one of the first ones. It was called The Red and Green Kingdoms. It was the very second, maybe. It was the first one. And it was fascinating for me because she was talking about the Red Kingdom are the mammals, the fauna that has blood, and the Green Kingdom is are the plants, the trees, the plants, and everything else, and how the two are interrelated. I just found that fascinating. Never really thought about it like that, but that whole cycle of we use oxygen, we give out carbon dioxide, the green takes it in, and there's just this interplay between us, and we think that we're not connected to trees. But it's our respiration depends on it, our food depends on it. The sun gives the plants their food, then they give us our food, then we give them back the carbon dioxide. Like it's a brilliant cycle. I mean, somebody really was inventive when they did that one. I'll tell you.
Must have been some kind of a designer, huh?
Must have been an amazing designer.
One thing I wanted to add to Jillian's thought about the wrong trees in the wrong places. What struck me about that was, as human beings, do we often end up in the wrong spot and wonder. I've seen people that have gone down a road of a certain career. It was not natural to them, but they kind of forced themselves to fit into it. And they experience the same kind of stress level that the plants do when they're put under a lot of stress.
Yeah.
And the environment that they're in isn't their optimum environment. And
Right.
because of this interconnectedness of people and nature and how one feeds and nurtures the other, I thought that was kind of interesting. The number of people I've seen where their happiness level is just not there. It's just a lot of hard work and stress to try and maintain, but they're so far down the road and they don't even know what's the matter.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a great life lesson, Joanne. Something else we can learn from the trees.
Mm.
Something else I want to add too about the benefits of trees is that apparently the oak tree has evolved into, with the canopy that they have, protects us from radiation. And it turns out radiation into oxygen as well. I mean, and that would suggest to me too that nature or the trees have known because for millennia that things are changing long before we even did, and that they were making this adjustment. And also, without trees, we don't have soil. Without soil, we're not able to plant anything and to grow anything. It's just an incredible thing, and we're destroying it. We have to make a change. And perhaps this is a good point for me to mention something to you that Diana had said about what we can do to make a difference. As she says that if every person in the world planted one tree a year for 6 years, we could take care of the problem of pollution. Now, that sounds really easy, but I know that a lot of people are not able to do it. And I thought, well, gee, like, sure, I can afford the tree, but where am I going to plant it? But then in this book, she explains that a very simple thing that you could do. First of all, she suggested planting oak trees. And so it's easy enough to find an acorn from an oak tree. And she said the most healthy kind are like either dark brown or black. And to take that little cup up at the end and plant it somewhere with some mulch of some kind, dead leaves. And she said within a few weeks, you'll get it sprouting. I mean, that's something anyone can do. So how easy is that? And we can make a difference and save the planet and save ourselves.
Just on that note, the other thing to do is to contact local conservation groups, because often they have tree planting sessions, and that you can go out and help them to plant trees. They always need volunteers to do that. And then the other thing I thought of was that give people an acorn, because you can actually order acorns and that are viable seeds, and give them to grandkids, give them to the neighbors, or whatever. I think that there are so many creative ways to plant trees that and I love when I walk. We have a forest on both sides of the road, and I love walking through and seeing those little trees growing. Like they're just sprouting up, and they're just it's so wonderful. And it makes me cry when I look at taking trees down, like some of the clear cutting for building new houses and whatnot. There's no respect for the tree at all. It's like, at least cut it in a way that it can be used.
Yeah.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying. I know oftentimes, like I live on a green belt and there's a little creek, and some of the businesses, will, like Union Gas, for example, or Enbridge now, they would plant trees, little baby trees along there. And yet young people will come around and just kick them over or knock them, think it's just fun. They have no idea what it is that they're doing. Again, it's about education. We have to let everyone know the importance of those trees and that we should respect them.
That's right. And I think she really emphasizes that, as well as the planting of the trees, but also the education, really getting the message out there that if we're going to save the planet, we need to repopulate the trees and get them going. Because the other thing is, and I don't know which essay it was, but she just talked about the cycle of, the animals, the insects, the trees, and us, and the whole cycle of, if there's a drought, they pull back, and if the animals are hungry, they produce more. It's fascinating to read about it. There's one of the it's actually part of the chapter on the bioplan that you were mentioning, Jillian, in terms of education and planting trees and so on. But she just has this wonderful paragraph, and because she was raised in the Druid tradition, she just has this great respect for trees. And so she says, forests hold a form of divinity. They are the holy order of our solar system. All trees capture carbon and release oxygen. They conserve and power the blueprint of life. The cathedral of the forest connects to human consciousness with a healing wand. The language of a tree speaks to the primitive in humans to form a molecular marriage of identity. This union of people and trees is ancient. We are woven together in an invisible living tapestry. This is the basic connecting element of life, all life, on this foundling planet, our home. For me, that just kind of gets the essence of what she has written about. And we planted a few trees this year, and I don't know how much longer we'll be on this property, but we'll still plant trees. Yeah, find places to plant trees. Yeah. Any other comments about this amazing book? You know what? We started out and said that she's very optimistic, and she is. She's optimistic in her book, and she also is on a podcast done by Canadian Geographic, and it's wonderful to hear her voice. And at the end of the podcast, she is so optimistic. It's like, okay, she is probably one of the world experts on trees and climate and survival, and she's optimistic. And I think she's someone that we need to listen to, rather than the fear mongers that.
Yes, because the optimism promotes action.
That's right.
Whereas the fear mongering lulls people into apathy because they think it's hopeless and there's nothing they can do, and so they just don't do anything.
Exactly. Yeah. Okay, well,
thank you, Jillian, for recommending this fabulous book.
Yes, wonderful book. So, and I want to thank everyone for joining us. And I will make sure that you have the title of the book and the name, so that you can read it. And if you get a chance to read it or listen to it or read anything of Diane Beresford-Kroeger's work, it really is, in many ways, a life-changing read. So thanks for joining us. See you next time. Bye.
Take care. Bye.
Bye-bye.